What's going on? I'm doing some rigging because I'm going to do a little fishing with Denny tomorrow, and I wanted to share with you these gnats. I wanted to share with you two rigs that are my go-to rigs anytime I'm fishing deep in structure. I'm Spencer, this river certified. One is for fishing in heavy timber cover, and the other one's for fishing in heavy rock cover, especially big rocks, because big rocks hold big fish, and I like big fish. Hopefully we're on the same page. So what you need for this first one, you need, at least for flatheads, I like an 8/0 J-hook, super J-hook. Whisker Seeker makes them because they're super sharp. I actually just experienced that. I'm surprised I'm not bleeding right now. An egg sinker, 2, 3, 4, 5 ounces depending on the type of current you're going to be fishing in. This one's a 3. Then I like to add 2 beads, optional. But these aren't the bobber stops. Now, this is just basically a modified knocker rig that they use for grouper fishing. Now, the first time I heard about this rig was reading in Fisherman back in the day growing up. Gnats are killing me. And all it is a sinker and a hook. And that provides very precise bait placement and really reduces your snags, because the longer the leader, the more snags you're going to get. Now, I modified this one slightly. I got to give all the credit to Dale D, who commented on one of my videos and threw out some suggestions, and I kind of took it and run with it and added a few other things on top of that I'm going to share with you right here. You take a bobber stop, first thing you put it on your line up above everything else. So one bobber stop, then I'll take my bead, put my bead on. After the bead, I put my weight, then my other bead, maybe, and then 2 bobber stops. Put that one on, slide it off, put my other one on, slide it off. Then I take my hook, and with upturned eyes like this, I prefer to snell it. And with braid, you want to put extra wraps because braid can slip. So I'll do like 8. Okay, 8 wraps, cinch it down. Okay, now that I've done all that, I take my bobber stop, and I'll leave that tag in just for a little security and it doesn't hurt a thing. Take my bobber stops, slide these 2 down all the way to the hook, tighten them. Then I like to trim these things just because it looks a little neater. Okay, those are trimmed. Let my sinker slide all the way down and slide that bobber stop down. Trim those. Alright, the whole point of this, normally if you have a rig with a long leader, it gets snagged, and then you try to bounce it off of the snag, and you have your weight hanging down here and it just flaps around and your hook stays stuck. Well, with this one, if it gets hung on a limb or whatever, because that sinker is so close to the hook, if you lift up and then give it some pressure, usually it'll just fall off that log. Or even if it's stuck in something, you lift up and then it comes off. Now, you can drop this stuff right in the junk, and 9 times out of 10 you get your rig back. It's kind of a double positive because you don't go through as much terminal tackle. If you do get it snagged up, these bobber stops will often prevent you from losing the weight, because if the line's going to break, it's going to break at the knot most of the time, because that's what takes the majority of your abuse. Bobber stops keep the sinker on there. In addition to not losing as much tackle, as you don't go through as much bait, and lots of times good quality live baits are hard to come by. So that's the modified knocker rig. It's my current favorite for fishing deep in wood cover. So my main line's pretty much always 85-pound braid. I have no idea what that guy's doing over there. Sounds like he's working pretty hard. I take a 3-way crane swivel and tie it onto my main line. Now I want to tie my main line up here, usually with just a palm or not. Okay, crane swivel's attached. Now what I'm going to do is, normally I would tie my leader here and then clip a sinker underneath there like a Carolina rig, but for this I'm going to do it the opposite. It's going to be have my sinker dropper here, my hook dropper here, and that reduces tangles, keeps my bait positioned away from the leader, and it just doesn't get wrapped up nearly as bad. Now my sinker dropper is going to be lighter or longer than my hook one. So this is 30-pound mono. So attached to the end of my dropper I have my sinker, and it might be a 2-ouncer, it might be a 3-ouncer, it might be an 8-ouncer depending on the current that you're dealing with in the scenario. So just be ready to adjust accordingly. Sinker, sinker dropper. Tie that to my sinker dropper to this part of the swivel. Right there, my sinker dropper is attached right there, and then I take my leader, which once again I use an 8/0 J hook for flatheads, but might be a circle hook for blues or a smaller J hook for channel catch, just depending on what you're fishing for. And generally this is heavier than the sinker dropper, so if you have a 30 pound for your sinker dropper, I'd use 50 here. If you had 10 pound for your sinker dropper, I might use 30 here. Attach it to the other part of your swivel. And that's all there is to it. You have your crane swivel. That part of the dropper has your hook right there, about, I don't know, 12, 14 inches. And then the other part of the dropper has your sinker. And what that does is your sinker's down here on the bottom, and your hook and your bait is suspended above it and less likely to get snagged. If your sinker gets snagged, no big deal. Your bait's still up here doing its own thing, and a fish can grab it and eat it. And if it's a big one, lots of times they'll just break this dropper for you, or even better yet, pull the sinker out of the rock. And then you can set the hook on the fish, land the fish, and at the very least, get your hook back, your swivel back. You might lose a sinker, but I'll sacrifice a sinker for a fish every single time. Fewer snags means losing less tackle, going through fewer baits, more time with bait in the water where fish can find it, and overall you catch more fish. So I hope you found that helpful, and I hope you catch a few more fish because of it. Really appreciate you watching. Hope you catch a giant.